What is up, team? Kurt's Northern Garage, and we are working on the FC today, doing a Volvo V70 electric power steering pump upgrade. Now, this is going to be a wicked upgrade because, first of all, I can toggle it on and off. I can control when I do and don't want power steering, or just to run electric because there ain't nothing wrong with electric. It's less draw on the motor, and it frees up so much engine bay space. Instead of having a big pump over here right on the shock tower, basically, I'm going to be stuffing it in the cooling support in between the rad and the intercooler. It's going to look really clean. It's going to clean up the engine bay, and it's going to be discreet. It's going to be hidden. I mean, you can mount wherever you want. I'm going to go over how you install it and basically where you want to put it. That's up to you. I'm going to go over everything you need, all the fittings. I am doing full AN lines for there and backs. We'll go over all the fittings you need, all the lines, the wiring stuff, basically everything for you to do it yourself and get it in your car so you can have electric power steering pump for the cheap. Trust me, guys, this is easy. Let's start ripping out the old system, and then I'll show you everything I got to make this happen. So like I said, the original system actually, you can see there's all these mounting holes over here. The original pump sat up in this location, and the pulley was actually up here, almost level with kind of the shock tower. Some guys will cut that bracket in half and then drill the holes and mount it on the bottom half. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the electric power steering pump. So we're going to mount the pump right up in here. We're going to run AN lines back to the power steering rack. We're going to get rid of these factory lines. We're gonna get rid of the factory cooling lines here, and then I also got an oil cooler for it, which will fit up here. So let's go on the bench. I'll show you everything I got for this, and then we'll start to pulling this thing out and then figuring out our mounting brackets for everything and the routing of all the AN lines for it. All right, and this is everything you need to make it happen. There might be an AN fitting I'm missing. I will say which AN fitting I'm installing as I'm installing the video, so you guys know exactly where they're going. I'll also put a parts list, an order list down in the video description so you can see all the fittings you guys need. If you want to go full ANs, or even just the fittings you need to convert it from the power steering hose, the originals, to whatever you see fit. But I'll show the thread size down in there. So I also got the Volvo V70 electric power steering pump. This thing is a single high pressure line, low pressure return system. This is obviously your fill tube and your reservoir. You then have your power, it would be power, ground, and then one of these is a trigger wire, I believe, off the harness. I did cut the rest of the harness off the car. The white and red is a 12 volt, keyed 12 volt trigger wire. I want to make this easy. I did get the Perform Motorsports Volvo power steering pump controller, so we'll wire this in. It gives you speed adjust for the pump. You want to make it faster, you want to make it slower. We got a whole bunch of -6 PTFE AN lines. You need PTFE if you're doing AN lines. It is the pressure rated line because obviously this is high pressure. This is exactly what you need. And then we have a slew of fittings for AN. Anything 45 will be off the rack. The 90s will be for the oil cooler. And then obviously we have adapters to run it from the rack to AN lines. These do need to be O-ringed. You gotta make sure they're O-ringed so they don't leak. There were hard cooling lines on the car. I'm gonna run those. I'm running a small Mishimoto Oil cooler. We'll also mount that up in between the cooling stack and the cooling support area. I got some 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch angle and an 1.5 inch flat bar for bending brackets to mount this pump. The only thing I don't have in the video right now is the bushings for this. You also want to make sure when you grab this, you grab the bushings for it. You can buy your own bolts that, like I'm going to do, I'm going to weld the bolts right onto the mounts that I build. That way, all I got to do is drop this thing on and throw a nut on it, but make sure you grab the bushings when you grab this. And again, if you don't want to do the controller, you can just wire these up. Just grab a healthy amount of the harness. So you have something good to splice into. So let's get into the car. All right, so before I start running any lines, I'm gonna figure out and actually mount my pump so I know exactly where I'm going from. And then same with the oil cooler, I'll get that mounted so I know exactly where my line runs need to go. I'm not guessing. So the oil cooler, I still have to play with where I'm gonna put it, but it's probably gonna be right here in front of where I have my coolant overflow. The pump I'm going to run right here. So I'm gonna have it touching this core support right on this side. I'll do an angle iron across that side. We'll riv nut it too. And then down here, we'll build up a bracket. Just a little Z bar here to mount the front of it. And then the same thing on the back. We'll do a Z bar to get that mounting tab. These things aren't light, so we're gonna utilize all three. And then I would like to have the reservoir on it either just flush with the top of the rad support or sticking out just a little proud. Since I put a cap on it, it's nice and easy to fill. That way it holds it up kind of out of the way. Obviously nothing's gonna hit it. It's pretty high up in there, but it'll just make servicing it and filling it if needed a lot easier. And then the good thing with this, so these lines clock off kind of out towards the passenger side. We'll be able to get a 90-degree fitting on this one. And we're probably gonna end up running everything through this hole here, which comes right out here. So everything should work out real nice, all line routing, and then from there down to the power steering pump. I'm going to touch on it later in the video, but this is a 2-port rack. I got a high pressure feed, low pressure return. Some cars are 3-port racks. You want the high pressure feed, the low pressure return, and then the 3rd port you can plug with just any bolt. You do not need the 3rd port. Lots of write-ups on the RX7 Club, no rotors, those pages, just look it up, you'll find it. But just so you guys know, my car is a 2-port, so this install is gonna be for 2-port steering racks on your FCs. So I'm gonna fabricate up some brackets and I'll show you guys what I built. Just like that, we got it temped into its mounting location. I got my 3 brackets made. I just got to install the bushings and then add the nuts on so we can hard mount this one here. As you can see, we got a piece of angle iron back in the side here, 2 riv nuts going into the side frame here. We got a Z bar here. And then one in the back here. It is again a Z bar, but it's curved around the bottom. Everything is mounted with riv nuts. Just need to mark where I'm gonna install the bolts, get those welded on, and then I can hard mount power steering pump. And then from there, play with the oil cooler location, wherever I'm gonna put that, whether I'm gonna stack it in front or put it beside in front of the coolant reservoir. I did remove the relay bracket here. I'm going to build a smaller bracket just in the front here to hold it instead of that big long one that spanned from your center support to the side. I'll do a small one just because I do only have the 3 or 4 relays. So talking them nicely here. I do like the idea of it being here because I am going to run a coolant panel here. So the only thing you'll see sticking out is the fill cap for this. And then we'll hole saw a big hole for the coolant overflow fill cap, but I want to make sure everything's tucked away in here because this is a nice area to hide everything for when I put that cooling panel here. I will also shroud in the bottom. We'll do a lower cooling panel so we really funnel all that air straight through the intercooler and then straight through the rad. We don't have to worry about it taking alternate paths. So I'm going to finish up fabricating these and then I'll show you guys where we're at with that hard mounted and then where I ended up mounting the oil cooler. And we have the oil cooler mounted. So again, like I said, it was a tiny Mishimoto. I want to make sure, because obviously your factory lines were just 2 hard metal lines. Doesn't mean anything big, so I found the smallest oil cooler I could find, and I'm just being Mishimoto, ran with it. Now I played around with where I want it, and this ended up being the best area. Obviously, it's going to get lots of airflow. We got to keep in mind there's going to be the front mounted cooler here. You have the rad behind it, so it's kind of going to get boxed in there, but you know, we're not hiding it behind this lower strut here. We're not hiding it behind any obstruction, so it should still get clean airflow through it. I obviously just did flat stock. It was just easiest, just notched the little return here, bent it down, flat stock, and it is wicked rigid there. I was concerned I have to do an L bracket on the top coming up to the upper core support, but the rigidity actually surprised me. So we'll leave it at that. We'll keep it simple. Now I have decided that this port here will be the return line from the rack. So return into here, just so we can keep those soft, easy bends in the AN line. Obviously we can't kick it around real sharp to this out return line feed. And then this one will loop around gently into the return line feed here. So I'm going to take all this stuff out. I'm going to get it all prettied up, put it back in, and then I'll show you guys running some AN lines. So the first one I installed, the black one, that is the return port on your rack. That is a -6 AN male to M16 by 1.5 O-ring. It needs to be O-ringed. And the second one, obviously I utilized still that factory banjo and bend, but that fitting there is the 16mm to -6 power steering conversion kit. I'll have part numbers for both of these down in the description below. So there I installed the -16 by 1.5 O-ring to -6 male adapter into the pump. We then did the -6 female to -6 hose end 45 off the pump. On the one side of the oil cooler we have the -6 female to -6 hose end. That will be the feed from the return line off the rack. And we have the -6 female to 3/8 hose barb, and that one will return into the pump. So I'm going to start measuring lines now. We'll get to cutting them, and then we'll get to installing. That is the end result there. Now I'm going to get started on wiring, which will be quick and easy. So we got a few things for this. Obviously, the factory pigtails off the pump, we'll be using these with the factory connectors. So easy enough, these two, just straight positive, straight negative. And then this is a pump end that we'll be wiring into this Reform Motorsport EHPS microcontroller. So wiring this thing in, it is keyed power, negative, and then these terminate straight into this pigtail. So it's exactly as their diagram shows. Red is ignition, 12 volt, yellow is can high, blue is can low. That'll all be controlled by this. And then we have a small screw in the corner here that adjusts the pump speed. So, you know, you can crank it up, turn it down, depending on how much pump you need. Now, I'm gonna take you in the car and I'm gonna show you guys where I'm installing this. So after quite a bit of consideration, I wasn't sure exactly where I want to put this, if I want to put it up in the front with the pump or not. Biggest thing is obviously I'm going to be running that cooling panel on top. So if I put this right beside the pump on that little cooling brace in the front, it wouldn't be easy to get to if I want to adjust it. Granted, it's kind of one of those things where you could adjust it and then set it. My other concern is just moisture getting in it. So where I'm actually going to mount it is down in here. What I am going to do, and this is just your center console, is I am going to just get some double-sided sticky tape, maybe Velcro it down right there. That way I can adjust on the fly. We'll drill 2 little holes through here and then run everything through the trans tunnel up front. Obviously, this way we're closer. For the keyed power, negative, we'll just run up to one of the center console bolts in here. And these 3, yeah, they're gonna have a longer run up to the front of the car, but this will just be nice for on-the-fly adjustments. It's just right in here. I have to install this, run some wires, and I'll show you guys where I routed them, how I ran them, and end results. And the wiring is all done. So I'll show you what we did here. Also got the positive cable coming off of that fuse block to another one. This one was a 40 amp fuse. 40 amp fuse, that feeds our positive here. Negative loops around, just a stud right here. And then we terminated the wiring harness for the controller. That runs underneath everything real discreetly, up the frame rail, into where the rest of the harness goes through. Honestly, once everything's in here, I don't even think you'll see any of that. From there, we'll run nicely up under the kick panel, up across, way up and across, so you can't see these wires even when you're looking in there. Through, come in beside the shifter here, come in here. And this is where everything terminates to. Got a controller here. So all I gotta do now is hook up the battery, we'll fill up the pump, and then we'll turn on the key and see what happens. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start with filling the pump. I don't have a proper plug for this yet, so I'm just using a vacuum cap, upside down. Now these things usually, this one had that remote reservoir, which was your fill indicator. So this thing can be 100% full. I got 3 liters of fluid here. Not sure how much it's gonna take to prime the system and fill the oil cooler. Pump's full. So give it some power. Turn on the key. We'll see what happens. So not only did we instantly we'll run out of juice, got a leak right off the pump. And that is the one M16 by 1.5 O-ring adapter going into the pump. I don't know if I actually tightened that one. Well, it might have only just been finger tight. Oh yeah, yep, finger tight. All right, let's refill the pump. Try this again. Another leak up the pump. Of course, of course. Tell me these are both finger tight. I'm gonna be so upset if these were both just finger tight. Did myself dirty like that. You know, I'm gonna be real honest with you. Low-key expected some leaks. Especially the lines being what they are. Yeah, still just finger tight. I thought I doubled up or checked all these. Like, I really thought I went over these all, but clearly not. These are the only two I obviously missed. And that is how you install electric power steering on your FC RX7 or FD or FB or really any car. Like, it's fundamentally the same across all of them. So hopefully this gives you guys enough knowledge that you can go and do this on your own, because wicked easy. This was a real easy, fun project. Cleans up the engine bay a lot. So killer outcome. I'm Kurz in the Northern Garage, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.